हम सब इसको आसपास रहने देंगे, भालू के बच्चे को भी बचाएंगे।
It is going to fly away and do its thing.
Yeah, we got it. Behind that big boulder.
Oh my God, yes.
हम सब इसको आसपास रहने देंगे, भालू के बच्चे को भी बचाएंगे।
It is going to fly away and do its thing.
Yeah, we got it. Behind that big boulder.
Oh my God, yes.
हम सब इसको आसपास रहने देंगे, भालू के बच्चे को भी बचाएंगे।
It is going to fly away and do its thing.
Yeah, we got it. Behind that big boulder.
Oh my God, yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel discussion organized by RoundGlass Sustain. I am Neha Dara and I head RoundGlass Sustain. We are a not-for-profit organization telling stories of India's natural world to create awareness, to document science, and to support conservation. We try to show you the magnificence of India's ecology so that you can fall in love with it and be a part of protecting it. This panel discussion that we're going to have today is born from a series of films that are currently showing on our YouTube channel and social media. So if you haven't seen the films yet, do go watch them after the panel discussion. The films tell the stories of 4 researchers who are studying endangered species in challenging landscapes across our country. The films provide a glimpse of what it is to be a wildlife biologist in India, out in the field, working on new science and on safeguarding our natural world. I feel like today's discussion is really special because it is a chance to hear directly from four remarkable people and to go behind the scenes of what it takes to do this path-breaking science and to conserve our habitats and species. I'm hoping that our researchers today will talk about the private trials and tribulations of being out on the field that are the sort of the backdrop to the public triumphs and the papers that are published that the rest of us get to see. I hope they will talk about what drives them to do what they do. And I think that if in the audience we have anyone who's just entered the field or students who are considering, who are on the cusp of making a decision about their careers, then this will be a pretty great opportunity for you to ask some hard questions and get the information you want. RoundGlass partners in this project to make these 4 films were the incredible husband and wife team of Bahar Dutt and Vijay Bedi. Vijay is an acclaimed photographer and an Emmy-nominated filmmaker. He has won the National Award for several films, including The Secret Life of Frogs and The Stork Saviors. Bahar Dutt is a Green Oscar recipient. She's an environmental journalist and a conservation biologist and an author. Formerly the environmental editor at CNN News 18, she also now teaches at Shiv Nadar University. And we hope trains a whole future generation of people like her who will be voices for the wild. So with that, I'd like to welcome Bahar. Bahar is anchoring this conversation just like she's anchored this entire series of films, and she will be leading us through this conversation with our 4 researchers. Thank you so much, Bahar, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Neha. I'm so excited to be doing this. I could not think of better company on a Friday evening than RoundGlass and the 4 scientists, that I followed on my journey. So once I started doing this series, I was 1 week in Kerala, another week in Kargil, another month in Arunachal Pradesh, and then came back to a rainy, Delhi, and then contacted Robin because he was looking at amphibians in his backyard. So I can't, it's a joy to be able to see everybody in one frame because I've seen you in different geographical zones. So I'm really excited about this conversation. And I really hope that the people who are tuning in from different parts of the world, from different parts of India, are going to enjoy this conversation as much as I'm looking forward to it. So, to take a deep dive in, firstly, thank you all so much. I know, Ayushi, you're on a separate time zone. The rest of us are in India, so I hope it's not too bad your end. But before I start, asking you your questions, I have to share some of my own thoughts of what it was like to film this. So I got a call from Ayushi one evening that turtles are about to hatch, they're about to come out. And literally, I was on the next flight the next morning and visiting her site in Kasargod. And I managed to reach just in time to see the hatchlings come out. And Ayushi, as her story has already been screened. So as if some of you have seen that story, it's, I think, perhaps the first documentation, I would say visually, of the Asian giant soft-shell turtle and the hatchlings coming out. So I would urge all of you, if you haven't already, please do have a look at that story because it was a very special moment for us. I also made my way to Arunachal Pradesh to meet Umesh, and my God, what a bumpy ride it is to Eagle Nest Sanctuary. I'd heard so much about the place. And then, to meet Umesh and to see the work that he's doing over there. So Umesh, let me start first by asking you, let me draw you into the conversation. And this is going to be my first question to all of you, actually. Why did you choose the species or landscape that you're working in? Why, how did you decide that this is what I'm going to choose and this is what I'm going to focus on for the next few years?
Mountains locations on our planet, and the eastern Himalayas is actually very close. And the Arunachal Pradesh, for instance, has like 750 species of birds, which is a phenomenal number. And researchers has bats, trees, insects, whatever. And also extremely threatening. It's advantage, for instance, because advantage in the eastern hemisphere are more at twice the pace as the global average. And this will have impact on species that we need to understand what affects these among species. And so when you have climate change and you have forest degradation, where the chemical care in that species in so many different ways, and we have a hot spot, we've got so many species. We really need to understand how these impacts play out, and if we can really to minimize those impacts and to prevent and species to persist in the face of these threats. And that's why even though that to a lot of threats. And I just say it's you fall in love with these places, I fall in love with these places, these landscapes, these species, the people. So it's that motivation that keeps you going back. But with global drivers, what we call global change drivers, the side of literature or climate change, not that law, it's also heartbreaking. So
Okay.
see what's happening with
Umesh, can we just ask you to adjust your mic? I'm not able to hear you very clearly. Can you just adjust your mic a little bit?
Could you, yeah, sure. Could you go to someone else?
Yes, I will do that. I will do that. Let me get in Ayushi now. Ayushi, how did a girl from North India end up in Kasargod studying turtles? And why did you choose a species which, you know, as you were sharing with me, had not been seen, I think, almost in a decade, or you know, very hard to see? So why would you choose such a species?
I think it was a combination of lot of factors, Bahar. It was first, I have to acknowledge it. It was also opportunity. It was also the need of the time, because I always wanted to work in South India, and we have very few species in South India. As I also told you during our film meeting, that we have like a very few, 4 or 5, 6 species that are there, and then those have not been studied. And it's not like any species in India is studied, of turtle is studied anyway, to an extent which we want it to be. But then in South India, it's even less, because the diversity is considered to be less. Also, I had an opportunity to work on this turtle, and it was the right place at the right time. I think that this turtle species was listed on the EDGE list, and then I got an opportunity to apply for that. And also, like, one of my mentors at the time, Dr. Deepak Veerappan, was helping me figure out my way in the field of turtle conservation and research. So I think the combination of all these different factors helped me kind of make a decision to come here and try to look at what we can possibly know now. I mean, I was starting from literally like ground zero, and I was like, I need to like start somewhere. Someone needs to start somewhere. So I kind of made that decision, and it was just the right time, I think. And it has worked out for the best. So
it has worked out for the best. But can I ask you, have you seen the turtle in the wild at all? Because I know I saw the hatchlings, which were the size of a coin. But I'm told the actual species, it's called Bhimanama in the local language, or Palapuvan. And it grows, I think, it grows much larger than that. So describe to me, perhaps, when you saw it first in the wild.
So I think it grows to 1 meter in length and can even grow larger. 1 meter is what we know of. And then, so the first time I saw the turtle was very like, it was just a glimpse in the water, and we could not even understand, like we could not even identify whether the turtle we're looking at is the same species or not, because it just came out for 1 second. And fortunately, we got some pictures that time and was able to like confirm from the snout, because the Bhimanama, or the Asian giant softshell turtle, has a very small snout, very different from the other softshell turtles. But after that time, it took me about 8 months to get my first sighting, like of the turtle, which was also not, I mean, I don't know whether it will consider it in the wild, because it was caught by a fisherman in the fishing net, and they called it saying that. So most of my sightings that are around like 8 or 9 have been through the bycatches. if I say like in the wild, in the water, in its natural habitat, we have only seen it a couple of times so far, and I have been in the field since 2019. So it's not great because these turtles do not want to come out, and they're very, very shy. So there's some sound, and they just go back, and like they do not like any disturbance around them at all. It's very opportunistic. I think you came, and some people have joined me in the field from other organizations, and like we have been unsuccessful in showing the turtle in the natural habitat unless it's like a bycatch.
Wow. So, that's not very encouraging for someone who wants to study the species.
It can get really discouraging at times.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Please go ahead.
I was just saying it can get really discouraging at times, and I get like sometimes you get like really frustrated with the situation, but then you have to go on and you have to like keep the final goal in mind. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to hear more about Ayushi and her stories from the field, particularly the work that she's doing with the fishermen, because I was really blown away by that. Umesh, if we can hear you better now, can I come to you? Umesh, can you? No, you're not audible. We're not being able to hear you. Maybe, Umesh, if you could switch off your camera, and we could have someone from RoundGlass just perhaps reach out to you and check the audio for him, please. Niaz, can I bring you in?
Well, can you?
Oh, now we can hear you. Umesh, we can hear you, but your mic needs to be closer. Can you just hold the mic up, perhaps? The mic.
Yeah. Let's get closer to the mic.
Okay, this is better. Go ahead.
What was the question?
I think we can hear you now, Umesh. Can you describe to us your work at Eagle Nest?
So what we're doing in Eagle Nest is studying how birds are responding to the giant impacts of climate change as well as habitat loss. Now, any species in the wild is not facing threats in isolation. It's not facing either climate change or either habitat loss, right? And climate change impacts, which is the world is becoming warmer, but forest degradation can complicate the impacts of climate change because degraded habitats can be up to 6 degrees warmer than primary forest habitats. So not only do you have this situation where you've got the mountain itself warming over time, but you've also got within the mountain patches of forest that are of different quality. And so when birds move around in these patches, when they're shifting their ranges upwards to deal with climate change, they can either colonize primary forest patches, or those populations of the same species can colonize degraded forests. And so now what happens when you have climate impacts causing shifts of birds upwards to higher elevations, just so that they can track temperatures? And what happens when these populations move into degraded habitats that are much hotter, much less humid, have far less resources? And so we've been monitoring these bird populations since 2011, just trying to understand how survival rates are changing over time, both in primary forests as well as in degraded forests. So that's a pretty much very brief gist of what we do with the field.
Okay, so just to summarize what Umesh just said, in case you haven't read his scientific paper, I did, and I think he put it together quite well. What I found fascinating, Umesh, about your work was that you didn't just look at climate change, but you actually brought in another factor, which was which was the fact that how are these birds faring, say, in degraded forests? So the human element. And for me, I think in a country like India, where biodiversity exists, in a sea of human beings, I think it's so important that studies like yours are done, because we tend to think of habitats as very pristine. We're still in the old conservation model of there are these, very pristine habitats, completely untouched by human activity. So you're not only looking at human activity, whether in terms of forests which are degraded, but you're also adding another element to it, which is rising temperatures. And as your study very interestingly has pointed out, what's happening to these birds as they're moving up, as they're moving up in terms of altitudinal range. We'll hear more on that. Let me now bring in Niaz. Niaz, if we could draw you into the conversation. You, again, selected a species which had not been seen for 10 years in Kargil. How did you decide to study, the brown bear? How come you didn't go for something like the snow leopard? You're on mute. Just unmute.
Yeah, honestly, I would say the sleep, I would say the longer sleep that bears do. But on a lighter note, this species was least studied in India when I joined as an intern at the Wildlife Institute of India, and I got the opportunity to work in the Greater Himalaya, Himachal Pradesh, Kukti Wildlife Sanctuary, wherein I got my first sighting of Himalayan brown bear. And after that, because just after that, I visited my home back, and I came to realize that brown bears are just in my backyard. And in Trans-Himalayan, nobody has studied this animal. So it really fascinated me. And in 2008, only first study on the ecology of Himalayan brown bear was conducted. Only in 2008. It's quite new, right? So, and that was the pioneer work on the ecology of Himalayan brown bear by Dr. B.C. Rathod. So that really motivated me to understand what this species do in the Trans-Himalaya, eat in this habitat, or how they are distributed. Because it was really interesting for me to understand that this species is only present in Kargil region, but not in Leh side, which is more or less the Tibetan plateau. But the distribution was really interesting. Uh, understanding the food habit was also crucial, because in Trans Himalaya, the vegetation is very scarce, and the dependency of these animals, because we all know that Himalayan brown bear is taxonomically it's a carnivore, but what it eats, it's a omnivorous diet. So half non-veg, half veg, this vegetation. So that was crucial for me to understand that what these animals, huge, they are like 300 to 400 kilograms, and what these animals in these such a shorter period of summer time, it's very short. Even for us, like it's very short for us to even manage the goods for the winter as well. So it was really interesting for me to understand that how this species is behaving in this environment. So that was the real part.
Yeah. So Niaz, yes, I find it interesting. It was virtually your backyard because you're from Kargil Dras, and so this seemed like the next logical conclusion to study the bears. You very lightly alluded to the sleep pattern of the bear, and I remember you telling me when I was filming with you that you're very fond of sleeping. So here is a species which loves sleeping, which is hibernating. So I think that joke did come. So I thought, let me explain that.
Yes, ma'am. And I just want to point one thing here, because and when your moms come to your house and wakes you quite early, what you feel, you know that feeling, right?
Yeah,
and
it's awful.
That is the feeling what climate change is doing to this species.
Yes.
They are getting out of hibernation too early. Last year in 2020, I observed a mother with a sub-adult in February only. Just February. February is in Ladakh. February is like is a time when there is huge snow. Even our Zojila Pass opens in May. So that really I was really surprised to see that how these because there are two major factors which I told in that documentary as well, that responsible for hibernation. One is food, second is environment factors like climate. So if that becomes feasible, these species are going to get adapted to the new climatic condition, and that indirectly going to impact the conflict. That's very to be honest, if the climate change is going to happen real soon, the conflict will rise in a very drastic manner. Yes, ma'am.
That's a very interesting point about cascading effects. So I think Umesh also in the research that he's doing, he's talking about climate change. And you're saying as well that when it comes to the brown bear, hibernation periods have become shorter. So they go out in search of food, and that's something which came out in the film as well. I found, what I found very interesting in the research while following you and tracking your work was that the bears feed on wild roses.
Yes,
For
ma'am.
me, that was very interesting as well. So, as I ventured out, I, was constantly picking up new things from each one of you. So I expanded my knowledge base as well. Moving on, Robin, I must get you into the conversation now because I love frogs, I must confess. And, I feel like the film that we shot with you, it was just there was something about it, because here it was right in Delhi. Here I'd gone to all these far off places, and then there's virtually in Gurgaon, in your backyard, you were studying these frogs. And tell me what's happening to the frogs in the National Capital Region, especially because yours was the one story which was about urban biodiversity. What's happening to them? Robin, you're on mute. Yes.
Okay. I hope I'm audible now. Yeah. So obviously, it's a very, I want to share because if you look at, my area of work is basically acoustics, like I track amphibian sounds, and I have been working on frogs across the country, and also
we seem to have lost the connection with Robin. Robin, can you hear us? Is there anybody else able to hear Robin? No. Okay. So technology issues always happen. We're all scientists and we know that. Okay, Robin, I'll come back to you. But even as we will try and establish the connection with him again, Umesh, can I get you into the conversation? I'm able to hear you, yes.
Okay, so this is better. Right.
I want to ask you, we have Robin back. I apologize for this. Robin, can you hear us now? And I'll come Yeah, please complete what you were saying.
Yeah, accidentally, I don't know what happened, but luckily I got back quickly because it was not a major problem. So, I was just trying to explain that then I started working on frogs and then realized that we do have frogs, and, but for amphibians, you get out at late in the night and you have to look for them based on their sound. So with those sounds, I managed to figure out what all species we have in Delhi NCR. And one of the biggest problem while I was looking for them was seeing them dying on road as road kills, because in the city, most of these forest areas are dissected by roads, and amphibians are very poor dispersers. So when they cross the road, they eventually die in the process while they are moving around in search of breeding habitats. And if you look at their migrating patterns, it's very interesting because they move along with the water. So means if the water comes on the road through slopes, they will move towards, because normally you can understand that they also know that water will stop somewhere, which will be a pond. So it's very easy for them to realize where all they can find a breeding site where the water will accumulate eventually. So sometimes you see, especially in near Aravalis, you see a lot of those breeding sites come very close to the roads and next to the hills, where they come and aggregate, and then they eventually, because of the vehicles passing on the road, they end up dying on the roads. So yeah, so I mean that is one of the major problems which I saw for frogs, and obviously we all know that we have a lot of habitat loss which is happening. If you look at Delhi, we don't see anything very suitable for frogs in the city. We don't have many water bodies, and even if we have some water bodies, they are not really suitable because of the level of pollution, contaminants that is there in that those water bodies. So that is another problem, and even in NCR part where we normally now we see frogs in NCR part mostly. In those areas also we are seeing it. There is a real estate lobby which is like being developing, and most of these habitats which I am seeing frogs now probably will not be. Especially the place where you were there, we don't hope that those areas will be there for a long period of time. So, I mean, obviously the situation is and it's not really great. But one more point, like everybody pointed out about climate change, and we haven't done much any concrete study here related to, but yeah, one observation that I can share for because of for frogs here in Delhi, which might be affecting frogs here in Delhi NCR, would be very unusual rainfall patterns that we are witnessing in the city lately in the last few years. Sometimes we see a lot of frogs start breeding because of a cyclonic rainfall, and after that we don't see any rain for 1.5 months. You can go out and see mating pairs of frogs laying eggs everywhere in those ephemeral ponds, and if it does not rain for another 1.5 months, all of these ponds, they actually just dries up, and we don't see any tadpoles developing into adult frogs at that particular stage. So it's not really a great situation for frogs, because I think they also are confused. Like, we had a very wet April, and even in early May in Delhi, we already saw a lot of species breeding this year itself. So and the toads were breeding. Even the bullfrog started calling. It's a little early for many of these species. But I mean, now you see the weather, whatever is the forecast, you see that there is no prediction for any more rain. Like, I mean, we don't know, but maybe it can happen all of a sudden. But right now, if I was looking at the weather map, we don't see any rain predicted for the city. So obviously, those frogs that are bred, again, we will see the same story, that they might not develop into adult stage. So yeah, so that is one of the major challenge. Even if we have habitats, we need the reproduction to be successful so that the new generation comes up every year. So that is one of the most we can see one of the biggest problem which even the frogs are facing here, even though there are breeding habitats. So you are on mute. I mean,
yes, I'm on mute now. My turn. Thank you, Robin, for that, and also for joining the dots with climate change. For those of you who may not have seen the film, it just got released today. So head on over to the RoundGlass YouTube website and do take a look. There's a very special sequence, I have to say, which is filmed in it. And I'm not saying this because my husband filmed it. I genuinely feel it's the most magical moment in that film, which is it's a wrestling match between two frogs over one pond. And, you can watch the film and see who wins in the end. But I found that a very interesting piece of natural history, behavior that we were able to record while filming this. So, Robin, thank you for that. You've all spoken about, the species, the areas that you work in, and some of the threats, particularly climate change, which is going to cause, I think, I shouldn't say catastrophic, but subtle changes which could lead to catastrophes in the future. Moving on now, I think what I really want to hear, because we all see, scientists doing their thing, practicing their science. What we don't see is behind the scenes, the legwork, the tough moments, the crying, the laughing. We don't see that. I mean, in films, you guys are projected as heroes. So take us through some moments where, I would say, take us first to some of the most magical moments perhaps you may have faced while practicing your science. Magical, I mean like an aha moment, and one embarrassing moment. So let's start with Umesh.
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I would say that for all the challenges in the field, it really makes a difference who's with you in the field to face those challenges. So at least for us, our field crew are a fantastic bunch, and a huge shout out to them, because without them being amazing human beings, amazing cooks, amazing, drivers and field staff, none of this would have happened. So, absolutely huge shout out to the 12 people who are working with us on this project in the field. Taking off more from what Robin was saying about unpredictable rainfall, I think that's the biggest challenge we face in the field. You get rained inside a very, very primitive field station for days at a time, and there's just 6 of you, and you're all looking at each other's faces for a week on end, and you've run out of everything, all the books you brought to the field to read. So you're ending up, reading your camera manual over and over again because you just run out of reading material. Elephants might come into our plots and disrupt the work that we've been doing. So you're sitting over there trying to ring birds, and then a tusker walks in through the plot, and then you have to really, scramble to get everything out of the way. So those are some of the challenges, and of course, Arunachal being remote, there's no electricity. The phone connectivity is spotty, so it's difficult to keep in touch with people. So those are some of the challenges, but I think they're largely overcome by having such great company in the field.
Nice, that's lovely. In fact, I should again just remind people that Umesh's story is going to be out next week. We've had 3 stories released so far as part of this 4-part series. So again, do watch out for the promos, and the films come out every Friday. Umesh's story is again very special because it's from an area, really a remote part of the country, and all the behind the scenes, it's in fact there in the film as well. So do watch out for that. Ayushi, Niaz, Robin, I would invite any of you to jump in. Ayushi, any fun moments, aha moments, embarrassing moments?
I think I would talk about one particular incident because that was like fun, embarrassing, and aha all at the same time. So we got a call from a fisherman saying that they had caught a big adult in their fishing nets, and we went there, and I didn't realize they had put it in a big tanker, and I didn't realize how big or powerful those turtles are. At that time, it was I think 2 years back, and I was there. And they tilted the tank to let the turtle out. And I was like, okay, you tilt it, and as soon as the turtle comes out, I'll catch it. And I was trying to get a hold of turtle, and the turtle pulled me with it in the water. So it's like, it was not even like the largest turtle I had seen. And like, it was just about 25 kilograms, I think, in weight. And it just pulled me with it. So it was quite amazing because there were all these local villages, and they're like, oh, so this is the researcher. So I think that was it. But like, yeah, but those are very rare moments in the field. I think if I talk about, like you're saying, as like these magical moments, but that happens that happens like 5% of the time. So most of the time, for me, at least, it's a routine. Get up, go to the riverside, go to the community, to the villages, talk to the community members, talk to the forest department, try and find some eggs, or like see where the turtles are nesting, what are the current. So it is all like a routine that I'm doing every day. And these moments are like once in a blue moon. I think that happens for me. So yeah, and the film kind of encapsulates all that in one 11-minute film, but it's generally like a very calm routine that I'm going with my community members, with my field assistants and team every day to the same spots and just sitting there. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think we tend to forget also the drudgery of it. And again, as filmmakers as well, you're often sitting with your camera waiting for that one moment, perhaps, where that frog is going to emerge from the, just from the undergrowth, and you're sitting, perhaps for 10 days at one spot, and that frog doesn't come out, as Robin very rightly pointed out, because the rains haven't happened. So there's also the drudgery, of the work. Niaz, any stories you would like to share? You're on mute.
Yeah, the most beautiful story, I would say, because that was the time when I saw just a 4 months old 2 cubs walking with mother, like in the wild. So that was the most beautiful, and it happened and after Ramazan, when we had Sahri, I told my field assistant Khadim that Khadim and Ahmad Ali, that we would like I would like to go into we'll roam around and see if we can see any bear. And they said, okay, we'll go. Then just after coming outside the house, and there is a small hill, and we went on that hill, and I saw a mother with two cubs, just as a silhouette of it. It was the most beautiful moment I have captured, and it till date it there in that moment. And it was just a 4 months old cub, and it was so delicate. And I was just thinking that these when they are born, they are just 400 grams only, and they grow up to 400 kgs. Just imagine. So that was
Yeah,
the
that's
most
a
beautiful
lovely
moment.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And the most
I, yes, please.
embarrassing was getting a frostbite in the wild.
Get- You got a frostbite, and how did you
Yeah,
how did you
yeah,
recover?
yeah.
Because
It
I'm sure
was,
students would want to
and
know more.
yeah. So on one day, we were tracking for deploying the camera traps, and me and my field assistant, two field assistants, were going uphill because there was a bit snow as well. So we had to trek on snow as well. So while reaching the hill, the mountain top, I was getting numb, and I couldn't feel my fingers. I told my field assistant that something is wrong with my fingers. I'm not able to sense it. So he said,
Oh
you might
my
got
God,
the
that doesn't sound
frostbite.
very good.
Yeah, and it took me 1 month to recover it because there is no medicine for frostbite actually.
Yes,
You just
yes.
have to soak into a bowl of warm water. That is the only vasodilator. You can have vasodilator medicine, but that is only to dilate your vessels. And that was where I was like, okay, my fingers are gone, but that was just a superficial frostbite. That's why luckily I have all my fingers.
Thank God for that. Thank God our bear scientist is okay. I have to confess that I went through the same magical moment as Niaz, my first sighting of the Himalayan brown bear. And we saw, again, a mother with two cubs. And I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I started crying because I was so excited. So that was a lovely moment for me as well. Robin, do you have any interesting stories to share, some magical moments, embarrassing moments?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of experience because, if you work in different landscapes in India, you will have different stories. Maybe from South, it is different. From Delhi, it is different. From Himachal, it is a completely different story. Yeah, I mean, each place has its own challenges. And, so for, like, if I talk about a challenge in Kerala, there is too much rain. Sometimes you can't work and you can't record because I'm using electronic equipments, and I have to record frogs, even though there are frogs, but you can't do anything. So it's like it's a big challenge. And in Delhi, exactly opposite. There is no rain, there is no call. You are out in the field, you can't do anything. So exactly, these are some of the biggest challenge. And plus, Kerala, we have elephants, we have leeches, we have,
Yes.
other wild animals. I have, I mean, obviously elephants have chased us. I have seen leopards in the field, and, it has been very interesting. And if you talk about fun part, if I am seeing frogs, if they're calling any day, if it is happening, it's all fun. So it can keep me going, like whether it is Delhi or Kerala or any other part of the country or anywhere. It's it's like because I want to hear them. I like to see what they're doing. It's the behavior part that I'm mostly interested in. So so that is what so that is what I will call as the fun part. If everything that I want is going as per my expectation in the field, which obviously rarely happens. We have had only few days where I have literally enjoyed because I still remember there are days where I have recorded like 20 individuals of frogs, and that has been like maybe 3 times in like 10 years or something. So so if that does not happen. So it's like quite a rare thing. Like the rain, we need 15 minutes of rain, then it does not rain again. The frogs are excited. Little bit of rain, and it keeps them going for a long time, and it helps us. But if there is rain continuously, it disturbs you. You can't. I mean, obviously we need rain because frogs need rain.
Yes.
But whether it happens with your, like timing has to be exactly matching with you, whatever I need. So it does not happen mostly. Yeah. So I think it's like on obviously field has different challenges. Like if I can give example of Northeast, in that side, one of the biggest challenge that I faced was there is no transportation. Like, I can't go anywhere if I don't have a, vehicle. So I remember last year I was working in Meghalaya. So you can see this frog in my background. It is from Meghalaya. So yeah, so this particular frog, I still, I managed because of one of my students who came all the way from Meghalaya to study in Venkateshwara. And then when I went to his place, he actually gave me his car, and I was driving his car all across the forest in Meghalaya. And luckily I could stop it anywhere I want, like wherever I want, wherever I was hearing some call. And then I just got out and took some pictures of different frogs and recorded some frogs.
Yes.
In Meghalaya. So it was a unique experience, because Northeast is not like Kerala, where you can just have good logistics. In Northeast,
I'm sure Ayushi's had other problems as well, whether or not, maybe the transport is there, but she may have had other issues. But
I have been
attacked
by,
yes.
And I was just saying, I've been attacked by pet dogs in Kerala. That is one of the.
Yes, and well, on another note, dogs is a big issue in wildlife at the moment as well, but maybe that's for a separate conversation. But yes, Robin, I think, leeches, you pointed out leeches, and I think we can have a full conversation with scientists on how do they deal with leeches, because that is a huge challenge. I want to bring in a personal story as well, Umesh, if I may, over here, because you're an MBBS doctor, right? And you left that. I mean, most people aspire to be doctors. And so there's a funny story also, because as Umesh is going around in Arunachal practicing his science, he often also gets approached by community people for, with their medical problems. But that aside, Umesh, why did you give up such a lucrative job as medicine? You'd done your MBBS. Why did you leave that to become a conservation biologist?
Well, I can say I really did enjoy studying medicine, and I really did enjoy the brief time that I practiced medicine. I guess the short answer is I just enjoyed this far more than I enjoy medicine. Rather than sitting in a clinic for 9 hours a day, I'd rather be out in the field, looking at birds and understanding the natural world. That's far more of a pull for me than medicine is.
Yeah, that's a great answer, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think we all need to follow our passions. We're coming almost to the end of this conversation. I just want to give a shout out to people who may be watching this live. Please send us your questions, any questions that you may have for our 4 scientists, any questions you may have for RoundGlass or the films, any commentary, we would love to hear from you. So please, this is not a one-sided conversation. What we're going to do is, in another 10 minutes, we're going to open this up for questions. So please just send them in, and we will be sure to take those up. But my final, as I wrap up the discussion, I'd like to ask you the role of communities. It's easy to say, it's politically correct to say they are stakeholders, we need to involve them. But how do we create that? And I think the joy of going out to all of you was that you don't just see communities as stakeholders, you see them as active participants in conservation. So you're not just going out there and giving them dole and assume that they'll participate in your programs. You recognize that this is not going to happen. This, I mean, saving species is not going to happen unless, we work with them, unless we establish those dialogues, systems of how they're going to protect the species long after you're gone, because, you may finish your research, your PhD, whatever. So what has been that journey like for each one of you, working with communities and really when we say partners in conservation, making that happen in real terms. So let's start with you, Ayushi, because I did notice the strength of your program really was the fishermen's network that you managed to build. And even the few days I was there with you, your phone was constantly buzzing with fishermen calling you up. I mean, so how did you do this?
Yeah, I can go on about it for like more than 10 minutes for sure, but I'm not going to take too long. So I think for me, it was the realization in the beginning that it cannot be just community based. It has to be community led. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to focus on when you're thinking of like conservation in human dominated landscapes, at least. So for me, like, I think the community has like a huge part to play, and this can be seen when I'm here in Miami and the project is going on. And I think that would not have happened if not for the community. So I think it took me about a year almost to make that network when I was constantly there in that landscape. But then once it's done, it's like it's going to go on for a longer time. So I think initially, to start a community-based, community-led research, you have to like spend a lot of time with them. And most of these it takes a long time to, I think, change the thought process of the community members of why should we care. But once you identify the people who have like really a say in the community, it can go on for a long time. So it's definitely worth bringing in people, and it's not just like stakeholders. It's like, as you said, they are the partners in our research. So I would not have collected this data, found out what I did find, if not for this community. So it's I think for any project, not just for the turtle project. I think with frogs, with Himalayan bears, or with birds, I think there's always like because we're always surrounded by people. So I think it's very important to like let them in and like let them take some lead as well. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And Umesh, again, you're in an area where it's community-owned land. You have to work with the community. You have no choice. It's not something you do on the side. And I noticed that as well when we were there. Even to go onto the land where, say, for instance, it's Bugun land. It's community-owned land. We had to constantly take permissions from whether it was the village headman or, so how do you navigate, doing conservation science while at the same time being very mindful of community rights and community aspirations?
With Arunachal and where we work, everybody talks about communities as being stakeholders, right? But the community is the most important entity there, and we are minor, we come in from elsewhere. The ties to the land, the ties to the landmarks of community land are so strong. And, for the community to ask me, who's this guy with a ponytail from Bangalore who's coming us and telling us to do these things, is a perfectly valid question. So I see our role as scientists and educators, as designers, filmmakers, in terms of bringing in certain forms of expertise or bringing in certain forms of information from our science, for instance, that the community might not have access to. So, with Arunachal, it's also so the Bugun community has set up this community reserve to protect this critically endangered bird species called the Bugun leochikla, which is named after the Bugun community. And the global range of this bird species is 2 square kilometers, and the known global population is 20 individuals, less than what are probably watching on YouTube right now. So they've set up this community reserve, and it's an act of great generosity. It's an act of great benevolence. It's an act of providing giving the world a gift, and that can only come from the community. And people like us, scientists and educators, are just facilitators in this process.
Okay, there are lots of comments coming in, there are lots of questions coming in, so I'm going to, read some of them out. So Rohan Chakravarti, we all know him. Green Humor, he says, Umesh also plays the guitar very well, and he plays the guitar at every campfire at Eagle Nest. So Umesh, your film is not out, but it's there. What you didn't know was, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you did register it. I did film you while you were playing around on the guitar. But there's a question actually from Tanvi. And Ayushi, that's for you. What do you think are the challenges for women working in the field? Could you tell us about some difficulties you may have faced?
I think I think Kerala is like amazing. I don't really have anything much to say. Then okay, so I'll just start with when I came to Kerala. I was really young. I was like 23 years old. So I think the only challenge I would think was like people saw me as a child. They didn't like most of the people, including like people who were important for the project, sometimes like didn't really listen to what I had to say. And I mean, maybe because of my age, and I think with time that has gotten better for sure. I mean, now that I go because I've been stabbed, and also because I didn't know a lot about the species that time. I was also learning. So I think that could be one challenge. I mean, if I say, but I think Kerala has been like amazing for me. So I may not have the same experiences as what most of the women might have in other parts of the country, because it's just because place and the people, they have been like really kind to me, and I didn't really have as much challenges. I could say the language barrier was one of the challenge for me, because even to this day I cannot speak Malayalam, which is a shame. But but people were really calm, and they were really, I think, they just wanted me to like have a good time, and they still want me to they still help me through the language process. So I have people who can speak Hindi or English, and they help me through this barrier. But that's one of the barriers I faced. But most of the experience has been like really positive. So
yes, you were working in Kerala, so I would say perhaps that
that could be. Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, if Rohan is listening, I'm going to allow him a question. He did give a comment, but it's interesting, and I think it relates very well to where Niaz and Umesh are working. Logging and defense-related issues in the Northeast and the Trans-Himalayas, ports and unplanned development in Delhi and Kerala. So, Robin, this applies to you as well. Would love to know the political challenges to your research initiatives, because science doesn't happen in a vacuum. Science happens in the midst of political decisions, and you're all working in landscapes which are slated for big infrastructure projects. So, how do you navigate your way through that? Robin, you would like to come in?
A few things that you are all aware of what happened here. There was a time when you might have heard of what was going to happen in Aravali Biodiversity Park. And so I think for me, it's one of the best sites for frogs, because we can see all of these 8 frogs that I was talking about, breeding in that particular park, right? So again, for me, and plus it's a protected, safe area for frogs. So any kind of, policy decision that comes from the government, which dilutes the status of that particular park, it will be obviously a challenge for conservation of amphibians here in this area. But rightly, if you know that area has been declared as OECM now, so it's I hope that it is safe now. But yeah, so this is one of the things, and obviously, if you face a lot of hurdles while you want to get some work done, so that is obviously a big challenge. Like getting the permissions to move things, and trying to manage people around. So all of these, you need a lot of help, you need a lot of support, you need to make a lot of contacts, which is always very helpful while you are in the field. You need to show that you are actually interested in doing something, some work, and if the person feels, probably he's going to come out and help you out, whatever it takes. So that is one of the things I think communicating properly is very important. Whatever you want to say, the message has to be properly, it has to be informed. So I think that works most of the time. It has worked for me.
Okay. So yeah, just for people who may not be familiar with Delhi or Gurgaon, what Robin is referring to is the Aravali the biodiversity park, which was a group of citizens actually came together and developed this place, and then developed as in rewilded this place. They restored a lot of the native species that were found there. And then lo and behold, the government announced that they will maybe build a road right through the park, which would have been devastating, and it would have undone all the work that the citizen groups had done. So I think Robin was referring to that. And again, just to draw the link to Robin's film, which is out today, he talks about design. How do we design our cities in a way that these microhabitats are still preserved for species like the frog? I think that's very important. And it again emphasizes the message of coexistence. We can have frogs in our cities. We can have urbanization, but urbanization which is sensitive to these creatures. All right, there's a question from Arshdeep, and I think this is useful, for any student who may be listening in. Arshdeep wants to know if there are internships for zoology graduates for getting real knowledge of wildlife. Do any of you offer any internships for students?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to say, a lot of students do work with me with frogs, and a lot of students have benefited in different ways by trying to learn what all things are required in the field, what all techniques. First thing that they should learn is like whatever your study animal, you have to orient yourself like that. For frogs have made me nocturnal, so you have to change your for people who work on birds, they have to be diurnal. So obviously, so
how can they reach out to you? I mean, if they want to do internships, can
so yeah, I mean, the film has released. It's on Instagram. I'm there, and I mean, if all
his details are there, you can reach out. Okay.
Yes, it's
Umesh, Ayushi, Niaz, any one of you also do you take on interns on your project sites?
I can go for it. Okay, go on, Umesh.
We do take on interns, but I would, if I can give a piece of completely unsolicited advice to the people out there, when I'm, the best way to ask for internships, for me at least, is to send an email. But if you're just going to send generic email saying I'm interested in wildlife and I want to do field work, the chances that you would be brought onto any project will be low. But if you actually demonstrate that you're interested in the projects that are ongoing in that research group, and you're able to identify with those projects, then your chances of actually having a conversation are much higher. But I would tell people not to hesitate to write emails or get in touch with anybody. The worst that can happen is that say we don't have space for interns right now. So just carpet bomb everyone, but be specific in your messaging to each person in terms of the kind of research that they're doing.
Okay, so that's good advice. Be specific. Do your background research. Don't just reach out randomly because you saw an Instagram reel, but try and see what they are studying. What is it that draws you to it? Ayushi, I'm going to let you also intervene. And Niaz, there's a question for you then. Go ahead, Ayushi.
I was just going to say that there's a very good platform in India, which is called Meet Yeti. I think subscribe to that because I've seen many researchers and scientists put out ads on that. And then you can go through the project descriptions. And if I need an intern, I generally put in there, or a researcher. So I think that would be a good place to start.
Okay, Niaz, I have a question for you. This is from Niaz. Would you like to? Do you take students or interns on in your project?
Yes, ma'am. Our wildlife department do take interns, and there are ongoing projects in Ladakh, wherein anybody who is interested with proper acclimatization, I would say, can join.
Yeah, acclimatization is crucial.
That's the biggest, the biggest problem here, the acclimatization actually. Right. I was lucky to born here.
Yes, so you're already acclimatized. So there's a question from Samiran Chakravarti. Would love to know from Niaz the distribution of Himalayan brown bears in the Indian landscape.
Yes, ma'am. So in India, to go on a broader note, in India, the Himalayan brown bear is distributed from our Ladakh to up to Sikkim. So it goes like Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, which is still a part of Jammu Kashmir, and Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and some part of Sikkim. So that's the range of the distribution of Himalayan brown bear. And there are so many incidences wherein the people have recorded, the Himalayan brown bear for the first time or something. So even in Ladakh, people have no idea about the distribution of brown bear in Ladakh as well. So it has come, it emerged very recently in so many places. So yeah, and even in if we, I can go deeper or deeper in each and every side, but yeah.
Okay, so there's
That's
clearly
the
more
broader idea.
information. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a comment and there's a question from Sonia Fatah. I'm sorry if I've not got the pronunciation correct, but Sonia is asking, what kind of narrative shifts would you like to see in the media around your work and the sustainability concerns in integrated environments? And yes, would anybody like to take that? Would
Yeah,
you find... Yes,
I would
please.
like to take a note on this, because just because of the people's unaware interest in the species, a species was killed in a daylight by a mob. The video which was released on internet. So it was just because of the people, just the stakeholders only, just the people who are living in that community only, became so furious, and they retaliated in a really bad manner that it cost the life of a brown bear. And unfortunately, that species was a female bear. So the cost of a female female species death, and that is what I would say, like wherein these interventions are very important between the community and the scientific advisors.
Yes. All right. So I think what Niaz is referring to is an incident. It's not an easy video to watch, but and there are many such videos of brown bears being attacked. But Niaz, to counter question,
connecting to that, yes, ma'am. Now you see every single village in Dras have a homestay just for encouraging brown bear tourism. Right. Now the mindset of every single village is getting changed just in these 3-4 years, wherein we did a documentary by Ashika Fiazi on brown bears in Ladakh, and I wrote an article on brown bears of Kargil. And it reached out in a very broad platform, and yes, people from so many backgrounds visited Ladakh and Kargil just to see brown bear. And just because of that, then now the community is so integrated to save the species, because it's giving that source of livelihood.
Yes, but Niaz, what I would counter question that, what I would say is that yes, communities get a livelihood, but does that necessarily translate into conservation of the species? Because there are real fears. There are, yes, as we see in your film, they do come and yes, help themselves to people's food, and which may have been stored in an area because it's easy pickings. And then yes, there's the problem of garbage, because tourism is coming in. And I think there was one question by Gajinder Benz, I think. What effect is VIP tourism having on habitats that some species are completely dependent on? So I think that ties in. It's good that there are homestays and people are coming to see the brown bear. But do we need to do more, perhaps?
What we need to do is regulation, ma'am. If it's not regulated properly in the initial state, it will be the most devastating thing that will happen. Because the hidden impact of tourism, ecotourism, luring the animal for sighting and other things. That is that if that comes to the local communities air, that will devastate each and every aspect. So regulation is the key.
Yes, Umesh, you wanted to say something to come in on this?
About shifting narratives, I wanted to highlight something that I feel feel is not highlighted enough in the larger conservation community in terms of the legal frameworks under which we operate when it comes to conservation in India, where we're guided and bound by an archaic 50-year-old law that was good for its time, the Wildlife Protection Act. It was when large mammals were declining and the need of the hour was to create fortress-like protected areas to make sure that they don't get poached to extinction. Our threats today are no longer those. Our threats are climate change. So we need connectivity between protected areas to allow species to move. Our threats today are invasive species that are taking over the vegetation of large parts of our protected areas, but managers can't do a thing about it because the act is so restrictive. We need to find better legal frameworks that are more dynamic and are able to deal with emerging threats. And these threats are emerging very, very fast. So it really need a lot of thought going into how we are actually legally regulating conservation initiatives in this country.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think it also ties in with what Rohan was commenting on in terms of the political environment in which conservation practice happens, because we're also dealing with the time when a lot of our environmental laws are being dismantled. And, perhaps that calls for a separate discussion. I mean, yes, we want improved environmental laws which are in tune with the times, but does science necessarily, decide the law, or is it political motivations for big infrastructure projects? But I'll leave it there. I'm not going to ask any of you to comment on that. We have a question. I'm going to take last two questions. One is for Robin. Very quickly, Robin, how do you think the upcoming heat wave is going to affect frog species in Delhi? Are you seeing any impact already?
I mean, obviously,
yes, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, we did not. Surprisingly, we did not see a proper summer till now. If you have seen what has happened in Delhi, I was just pointing that it has rained in entire April and up till first week of May, and the heat wave is about to start. We can see temperature crossing 45 or something in the next few days. That's what the prediction shows. So obviously we will see some impact, because what I have seen in the last couple of weeks is small water bodies being formed, and frogs some of the species have already bred. And obviously they will be facing a huge challenge, because we don't expect any more rain, at least for another month or so. So maybe even more. Sometimes we have seen June without rainfall. So obviously it is a big challenge for amphibians right now to deal with that situation, because it will completely, the entire breeding process that has already been complete for some species, it's not going to be giving any kind of fruitful result in the city. So, so obviously it will be a big challenge.
So if we are feeling the heat wave, think of what amphibians are going to feel and the repercussions that's going to have on them. Okay, my final question is to all of you. This has come in and it's again on a lighter note, so that's a good way to end. It can be challenging to do any kind of work that breaks the mold in a place like India. Curious to know how your families feel about the work that you guys are doing. Do they understand the importance of the work that you do, or do they think you're slightly crazy people walking around the streets looking for frogs, going to remote forests and looking at birds? It's a great question. What do your families think of the work that you're doing? Robin.
Yeah, obviously I have huge support from my family. Absolutely, they understand.
Was it always there? Was it always there?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it has always been there, and I'm very lucky in that way. It's like people understand everybody understands what I do, and so there is a completely if I'm going out at night or something,
they don't get suspicious.
No. Yeah, because for frogs, you are going out all the time, and especially at night, and maybe sometimes I'm spending time in the field till 4 in the morning or something. So because if the breeding is happening and I have to see what is happening, so
I've actually met Robin's daughter. Sorry to cut you, Robin, but I just thought it's a great chance to tell that story. Your daughter can, I think, identify up to 100 species of birds or 50, and she's 7.
Yeah. She is absolutely. She is she started with butterflies and then birds, and she has learned frogs as well now. So
Okay.
it is a it's wonderful to see her interest in wildlife. Yeah.
Niaz, did you have the family support needed to
Yeah,
do the work you
the
do?
only thing my mom says is like, don't sleep in caves.
Don't sleep in caves, but other than that, studying brown bears is okay.
Yeah, it was really challenging for me because in the environment or in Ladakh, there is very few people who are working on wildlife. Very few. Like we can count on finger, And for my parents, it was like, why don't you look for some, job and settle down? I was like, but what I've the passion that that can wake you 4 in the morning is what you love, you know.
Yeah. Niaz, you got married recently, by the way. I
Yeah,
have
and
congratulated you. So
thank
what does
you.
your wife think of the work that you do?
She's just here waiting for me
Okay.
to end this meeting and go home.
So maybe we should ask her how she feels about your work. Okay.
She loves going with me into field. She spotted me once red fox in the wild.
All right.
That was her biggest achievement till now.
That's wonderful. I haven't seen a red fox. Umesh and Ayushi, let's hear your story. Umesh, what about you?
I must say that to do the kinds of things that we do, you have to be a little crazy. And a lot of people don't get the pull, right? A lot of people don't understand why does this fellow go to Arunachal, 3 times a year and spend weeks and weeks. But you don't need to understand. But I have great support from my family for what I'm doing. But again, you have to be a little.
You have to be a bit crazy. Ayushi, are we all
Absolutely.
crazy people?
I think for the longest time, my family could not come to terms with it. And then I had to had a lot of discussions and it was a full Indian family drama. But I think I also got married a year and a half before, and my husband is also a wildlife ecologist working on birds. So I think after that, they're okay, they have found a match. So now we're okay. But they were not very comfortable with me as a single woman working in the field for the longest time. I think that's understandable from an Indian society point of view. So I think that is where I struggled a lot. But yeah, now I'm content, me and my husband. So yeah.
Wonderful. So I think we've all had to fight battles of our own. I'm going to end this conversation on a slightly personal note, which is that I have to thank RoundGlass Sustain because my husband Vijay Bedi, who was the producer for this film, and he was initially asked by RoundGlass to do this. What many people don't know is that he stayed behind to look after our kids, our 2 daughters, and I was going out into the field and anchoring the show. So he played the role of the father, and I was going out and doing the professional work. So RoundGlass, this is the first time we actually worked on a project together, and I have to really thank RoundGlass for that because it had its own set of challenges. Working with your partner has its own, as everybody knows, own set of challenges and own sense of delight because we could sit across the table over many dinners and discuss brown bears and frogs and birds and turtles. So it's been quite an experience for me. I just want to say really thank you that we have such a platform like RoundGlass Sustain because it's giving us this chance to have these conversations, very real, important conversations about conservation. The world that we live in tends to forget species, tends to forget the people who study these species. We are not the Instagram influencers with those sexy reels, but I think that all of you as scientists are doing work which will help set our world right. That's how I perceive it, that conservation scientists are not just, practicing their science. All that we see wrong with the world right now in some small way, in your own way, you're trying to set that right. And I think that's a huge challenge. And I think we don't pat ourselves on the back enough for it. So thank you all so much for letting me, share your journey, your experience, your stories. Do all of us, all of you out there as the audience, please look out for our stories. Please send in your feedback because it helps us do our work better. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to RoundGlass and Bahar and everyone. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to, present our work and for giving us this platform. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank Bahar ma'am for accompanying in the field, and I would like to invite all of you to come to Ladakh and see brown bears. How fluffy. You see the bears at home, but you can see in the wild as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, RoundGlass. Thank you, everyone. It was lovely meeting you guys.
Okay, hello everyone. I just want to. Sorry, Robin, did I cut you off?
No. I was also just trying to thank everyone, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to say a quick thank you for being part of the panel and for being part of the films. And thank you for being this good crazy and doing what you do. It's been just wonderful hearing all the stories and all your behind the scenes anecdotes to really understand the magic and challenges that's part of your work. We at RoundGlass Sustain have had such a wonderful time producing this series with Vijay and with Bahar. A big shout out to Vijay. He's here somewhere in the audience. I'm sure he's listening. Yeah, it's been wonderful. 3 of the episodes, just to let everyone know, 3 of our episodes are out. You can watch them on YouTube and on our website. Our episode with Niaz, with Ayushi and Robin are out, and we will be releasing Umesh's episode, which is extremely special. Do not miss it. On the 19th, it will be released. So anyway, thank you very, very much. Thank you for attending. Thank you to the audience, and thank you for your questions. Bye-bye.